spoilers for The Rings of Power. Hi guys, welcome to the script department. I am Brad, and we are going to be checking out Rings of Power episode 7 this episode. We're here with John. Hi John.
Hello.
How you doing? Feeling Rings of Power-y today?
I'm feeling very excited about Rings of Power.
That's good.
More so than I have been in the past.
Yeah, there's some big events happen, which we're about to discuss. But before we get into that, if you haven't checked out our website already, just toddle on over to thescriptdepartment.net to see what we've been up to. You can find us on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, YouTube. Give us a like, give us a subscribe. It always helps us out. And now you can buy us a coffee if you want to help support making good bits of content like the one you're about to watch. So, John, pretty dramatic episode, quite gloomy. What were your feelings on Rings of Power episode 7?
So this is my first time joining into this conversation, so maybe I should briefly explain kind of how I've been feeling so far. I was really excited about the show, and I really I gave each episode my full attention. I think the first episode I was like, okay, wow, we're back in Lord of the Rings territory again. It really felt like Lord of the Rings, and then from then on, I felt like it was taking me in a direction that I didn't really want to go in Lord of the Rings territory, and there were some characters that I wasn't really that excited to be spending time with. I wasn't really sold on Galadriel as the driving force behind this show, but I have to say, I wish I'd actually been more trusting of it, actually, because the last 2 episodes just really blew me away. It really kind of it gave me those kind of good vibes that I get when I'm watching the Lord of the Peter Jackson's films, and they're not. I don't think anything will ever hit the highs of that we all felt. I think of those first movies, but I'm a staunch supporter of the Hobbit trilogy, and this is at the very least up there with that for me, and it's showing real moments of brilliance that I think is kind of exceeding that level as well. So I'm really enjoying this, and this last episode was such a payoff. I think I know we have one more episode to go, but in this season, but this episode was a real payoff for me and a kind of a reward for sticking with it. I know some people who haven't stuck with it, and this was the episode for me that was the reward. There was that moment where the boy hugs the elf and his mother, and I just thought, yeah, that was worth, I really enjoyed that thread, but that was like a real payoff moment. Or when Galadriel kneels down before the queen and, up on the rock, I just thought, this is a payoff moment right here. And or the Harfoots, there was a lot of payoff moments that I just thought, this was, this is turning into something really special, I think.
And it was interesting that all of the payoff moments were a key to a new adventure.
Yes.
They were a key to a new journey. And it's like this saga is going to go on for, we know, at least 3 seasons, I think they're committed to so far. And it's like, we know this is going to keep going, which is quite a nice feeling. I think sometimes towards the end of a season, particularly the penultimate episode, you can feel a bit blue about it ending. And you're like, oh, here we go. We're going to have, nothing but reruns again for 6 weeks until the next thing's on. But yeah, it's there's something quite nice about that, I felt. And you were saying about the structure of it and how it's played out, and that it hasn't let us down. It's been really compelling television, and the way they've spread it out has been really interesting. I know that it's upset some of the Tolkien fans, like the hardcore Tolkien fans and the scholars and stuff, because it's gone off script, which is, that it's a risky thing to do because of the respect that the original text got. So there is a split. And I think at the moment on Amazon, it's like 3 stars of 5. And you can see there's a split down the middle with people who are hating on it because it's seen as besmirching the original scripts. But for a writer to be watching it as just a TV show, relatively standalone, I know a bit of the Tolkien text and I've been educating myself somewhat, but to watch it from a standpoint of it's a TV show and I'm here to analyze it. I've been enjoying it. I've been enjoying the structure and the pacing and everything. It's been a good one. And we've started to get a few of the payoffs. Like we say, we've finally got the creation of Mordor. As soon as we saw that trailer come out and that we saw a volcano going off, we're like, oh look.
how dim I've been with this. I was watching with Michaela and the volcano went off. I was like, oh my God, like the devastation. I was just so like, oh my God, what's going on? And then afterwards, Michaela said, so that's how Mount Doom was created. And I thought, oh my God, it's Mount Doom. It never even clicked with me that it was. Maybe that says something about how this show has kind of pulled me off in a different direction. It didn't even dawn on me until the credits rolled that this was Mount Doom.
Did you not sit there and go, oh yeah, I knew that. Sure.
No. I was just, I don't know what. I'm not the Lord of the Rings guy. I've never been an expert in Lord of the Rings. I love the movies, but I'm always somebody who's kind of come to this purely as just a movie goer thinking, oh, I wonder what I'll watch today in the cinema. Oh, this Lord of the Rings film. I've heard a lot about this. I've always been that kind of guy when it comes to Lord of the Rings. And again, I think that's why I enjoy the Hobbit trilogy so much, where so many other people are so critical of it. And it's why I've been able to let go and enjoy certain parts of this where other critics have maybe been more critical of it. But it's also why I think certain parts of this, I thought, don't care about this. I don't care about that little thread. I don't care about that little thread. I care about everything now, because now it's just sucked me in so well, But starting out, I'm just watching this as this is a big hyped show that I should give my attention to. It was the brand, I think, that was driving it for me. But just that, like, I felt so silly watching it and not clicking in that moment. But I also think it's not like I can see this stuff a mile away sometimes, but it was I think it was just the fact that I was just shocked by, we built up to like, we can fight, we can win, we can fight for our homes and all that kind of stuff. And I just did not think that they would pull the kind of Game of Thrones rug out from under you, And I know it's not as violent or as kind of harsh or as cruel as, a HBO series, but that was a cruel moment for these people in this show. It was, and it happened to the Harfoots as well in this episode. Like you've got your victory, and now, but we're not going to let you celebrate. And it was just masterful, really masterful.
It's interesting that you say you didn't see Mordor coming, because having Marcus, who knows more than most of any of us put together, I think, about Tolkien, like, we've constantly been pointing towards it, like the shape of the map and the Southlands is Mordor and all this kind of stuff. Oh, Adar says he's going to block out the sun. Great, he's going to make Mordor here. But to the point where at the end of this episode, they say we can't call it the Southlands anymore, and Adar looks up at the mountain. And then they do the caption, change it. That, for me, they didn't need the caption. They could have just stopped. Yeah, they could have just stopped. By that point, we know it's Mordor, right? But even if you didn't, when it went off, we kind of know what's happened here. And they didn't need to. I don't think they needed that. It felt a very expositional thing.
I think that was done for me. I think that was just done for me, because I think they were assuming like Michaela might not be watching it with John today. We need.
He might not have his guide to watch this.
No, but I'm not somebody. Look, I don't want it to sound like, oh, geez, I sound like such an idiot right now, having not seen that. But I don't think I was expecting an origin story for Mordor. That's the thing. I think to me, volcanoes have always been there, kind of thing, And I don't think I was expecting an origin story for the place where Sauron lives or resides or whatever. And so when I saw a volcano erupt, I just assumed it was, you've just turned this piece of land against the people, and that's it. I wasn't expecting it to actually be the birth of something. Like the origin of something important, and so I wasn't watching it in that moment as a kind of as this is a profound moment where Batman is like being surrounded by bats or something like that in a bat cave, and it's like he's learning to kind of stand up and be brave, or anything. It didn't feel like any kind of crucial moment or turning point for the world, it felt like a turning point here for these people. But
Yeah.
then it very quickly dawned on me then after it was highlighted. I was like, oh yeah, this is actually like, this makes sense. But it was also, that's the moment for me that sealed it, like, okay, I'm in. You know,
Yes.
I think there was a part of
Yeah.
me up to that point where if you had said, would you rather just wait until all the rest of the episodes come out and start binge the rest of it, I think I might have just done that instead. Or if, you know, when season 2 comes out, there's a part of me that may have just said, look, I'll wait until it's all out and then I'll just binge it, because I don't know if I'm so enthralled in this that I would wait week by week. But it was very clear at that moment, they've got a game plan here. They've got I kind of knew they did, but it felt like this was really being committed and set in stone here. And it bowled me over that moment. Yeah.
Yeah, I think it was pretty amazing. The actual cataclysm of the mountain going off, and then the aftermath has been very dramatic. So very like episode 7 has been a very grimy and grim episode, and you know they're walking around covered in ash. Damaging themselves potentially beyond repair. If you look at the Queen Regent's vision, and it's not in the show, but I'd imagine there'd be some pretty dramatic lung illnesses as well happening. Yeah. Walking around in that, roofs collapsing, characters going missing. So the tone is really taken a dip, especially since last episode.
You know what I would love? I would love like 3 or 4 seasons from now, like characters actually exhibiting real health problems.
Oh, that'd be pretty amazing.
That have stemmed from this, like really show us just like this wasn't just like you will pay the price for this for years to come, just from being there. Like why are they sick? They were in Mordor when it was created, that kind of thing. Like that happened with 9/11 first responders. Years afterwards, they were suffering severe health problems. That we've seen in different documentaries and so on. And I think you could really. It did feel to me that we were doing visually. It was a little bit tame afterwards. I did feel like I would love to have seen like someone just like when you see the kind of the convoy of people just making their way through the forest afterwards. And I would love if someone had just keeled over. Like show me that this is still going on, because it did feel like everybody's out of breath, but they do seem to be finding their oxygen somehow.
Yes.
And this place should not have, like this place should be starved of everything that life needs, right now, particularly if it is Mordor, you know what I mean? Which it is.
Yes,
I can say that confidently now that it is Mordor.
Now there's been a graphic, an on-screen graphic.
They wrote it for me. Yeah,
they've renamed it for you.
Oh God, I'll never live this down.
You've admitted it on the pod now. You can't get it's going out to the world as we speak. So the tone of it has really taken a dip, and it's been slightly relentless in the way that it's presented this. Of course, it's the creation of hell, basically. We are getting a really grim nail in the coffin for that part of Middle-earth. And, all of the stories as well have sort of taken quite a dip. Even the brighter Elrond and Durin thread is now it's getting quite sad. And I wonder how you feel. How do you feel about how they've done what they've done with the tone? Because it's the penultimate episode. Like, are we going to end with hope or fear? Like, where are we going with this, do you think?
I really don't know, and I'm very excited. I'm really excited. I've been more excited about this, like just thinking about it over last night when I watched it, and this morning as well, thinking about talking points for this episode. I really am excited for this next episode, and I almost, I think in there are other shows that would have made this their last episode. This feels like it's a season finale. It feels like it's the setting up of, it would be like the first episode of season 2, where it's like we're going in a totally different direction now, and we're setting up a series of different threads now for this season. It is actually, I think, structurally a little unusual actually for the penultimate episode of the season, but only because it makes me feel like I have no idea where this is going to go. Like I've been watching Peaky Blinders as well recently, and I just think that's become like the benchmark for everything now from television. And those penultimate episodes, like I'm binging it on Netflix, and so I don't know what episode I'm on really. I just hit next episode, whatever it is, but I can always feel like when I'm getting to the end of the season here, I can feel like this is the second
Yes.
last episode. The way it wraps up, it's like we're getting ready now for that last moment, that last kind of that last plot twist or whatever. And yeah, I genuinely don't know. I like the fact that it went down this road. It really feels like the show has earned the right to be able to do this. The right to be able to have
Yes.
that tonal shift. Few shows can really actually command that. And I'm not totally enamored with the writing in this show across the board. I do think sometimes it's trying very hard to be Tolkien, or what I would imagine to be Tolkien-esque, I guess, in terms of style. From watching the movies and so on, it does feel like sometimes they're trying to channel Peter Jackson. It at times it feels like they're rushing certain components, but this just felt earned. It felt like everything came together in the right way. You knocked it out of the park with this.
Yeah. Sorry, Joe, I was going to say that you were leaned on the structure. Me and Marcus have sort of chatted about it as we've gone through, and it feels like rather than the more 4 or 5 act TV structure that we've sort of grown to know from network television, American network television shows, they've sort of based the whole season on 3, I think, and it feels like we've got a 3 act structure. So we had the midpoint twist of not Sauron, not Sauron, not Sauron. None of them are Sauron, possibly. And the cataclysm that we rose to was Mount Doom going off, point of no return, and now it's we've got the dropping intensity of action to the conclusion, and you can sort of see. I mean, we look for patterns all the time, but we can sort of see it happening, and I kind of understand why it feels like it's falling around that, because they've made 8 films here.
But it is perfectly structured, because your second act should be twice the length of your first act. And so if you wanted to say that, I mean, it was 8 episodes here.
Yeah.
So you got 2 episodes for Act 1, 2 episodes for Act 3, 4 episodes for Act 2. My math's correct?
Absolutely. Absolutely.
And so your end of episode 6, your end of Act 2 is the volcano. And your end of Act 2, your end of Act 1 was the first 2 episodes. Like Act 1, they basically gave us Act 1 in day 1,
Yes, they spread out that in the first act, the first 2 episodes. They told us exactly what was going to happen near enough for the rest of the episode, for the rest of the season. It's like, okay, Acts 3 act structure, and it kind of fits, and you can see the filmic nature of what they've done here.
The only issue I have is that, if you want to say that Act 2 is the real reason we kind of come into a movie, we're not that interested in. I think people are less interested, arguably, let's say, in Frodo and Sam hanging out in the Shire. They're more interested in them setting out on the road with the ring, right? I mean, that's kind of what we want to see. And we're less interested with Harry Potter just as another fantasy, blockbuster. At home, getting invited to Hogwarts, we're more interested in seeing what they get up to in Hogwarts, right? I don't think it's silly to say that, but this does feel like the second act, or at least the first half of Act 2 of this season, was a lot of debating in Numenor and hanging out in Numenor.
Yeah,
and I'm not the biggest fan of that. I don't know if that's what people were tuning in to see. It's the challenge of setting up this new vision for the universe, while at the same time trying to push stories forward as well. You can't have your cake and eat it too. Maybe the next season will be, I think, will lean more towards a traditional film kind of structure. But this definitely is emulating, or trying to emulate, filmic structure, I do think.
Very much.
And doing a good job of it too, for the most part.
Yeah, I think the quieter episodes in the middle have been. It's felt a little too flat. So they're doing the politicking, which, and again, not to compare it too much to Game of Thrones, but it is an enormous fantasy show that is from us. We can't avoid that sometimes. The politicking in Thrones it's been massively dramatized and there's a lot of backstabbing. So if it's just normal politics, it isn't what people are tuning in for. Yes, there are hints of skullduggery going on, but we haven't been given that yet. We haven't had been, the people haven't revealed their hands in Numenor to what their plans actually are. We could get a hint of it, but there's there's no one that we know is backstabbing precisely at this point, which is
I don't.
it makes it feel a bit flat.
I wouldn't have bothered with Galadriel, you know, jumping over the boat. I wouldn't have. I would have just had her be. I would have seen it from Halbrand's perspective, coming to Numenor as a survivor of a shipwreck and meeting this mysterious, like, oh, you need to talk to the elf, and it's like, there's an elf in Numenor. Yeah, she's been here for a while, whatever. And then they go and talk, and it's this reveal. It's Galadriel, blah blah blah, and then it's, I'm finally going to go back to Middle Earth, and she comes with him. Like, I wouldn't have bothered with the whole. And I think it would have been more interesting than for her to meet Elrond, later, rather than them kind of parting ways and then her going back again. Because when she gets on the boat, I know we're kind of drifting off from this episode, but when she gets on that boat, it almost felt like for the first time in 1,000 years, I'm setting sail again for Middle Earth. It almost felt like there was something special about her getting back on the boat. I was like, yeah, you've only been here for a few days, or whatever it's been. Like it's. I mean,
so I think the Halbrand thing is interesting. The fact we could have seen it from Halbrand's point of view.
I think so.
I think there's a reason they were floating. If you think about the odds of it, they were floating in the middle of, let's call it, the Atlantic Ocean. Randomly, the general of the armies of the North for the elves met the king of the Southlands floating in the ocean. That was engineered, like, within the world of Rings of Power. Like, if he's Sauron, which my chips are on him still. If Halbrand turns,
you think Halbrand Sauron? Yeah,
yeah, he's one of my top Sauron.
Yeah, I think so
top Sauron bets. So if he's Sauron, of course he was floating there waiting for Galadriel, because this episode where he's been missing. And just how they brush it off. Oh, they found him on the road with a hole in his side, just here. And now all of a sudden, green card to get into Lindon. He's been taken to Lindon, and it's like, come on, it's got to be him at this point.
I think you're right. I was thinking about it last night, and you're so concentrated on who could on all the other side characters or whatever, and you're thinking. And I was thinking maybe it is him, but then I was thinking there's no way. Like, I mean, I've already felt stupid enough about the volcano. I mean, there's no way I'm gonna be fooled and think that. But because it wouldn't make sense. Like, he wanted to just be. There are scenes that would make me think this wasn't very well written if that is the case, because he stole got himself into trouble by stealing what do you call it, like the guild crest,
the badge,
or whatever, the badge, whatever it is, and maybe that was to get him get him put into a cell or something, maybe. But unless he's prophetic, I don't think that kind of stuff was very well engineered, but if you can explain it well enough through a quick line of dialogue, like just something very simple that just lets the imagination figure it out, I think I could buy into it. But yeah, it does make total sense that this evil presence she's been hunting for millennia is right there next to her. That would be
a potential love interest, like that.
Yeah. Like what? Like, she can't trust herself anymore, like that kind of thing.
Yeah.
I think they could do something really amazing, but you would have to handle it very carefully, because she is the show itself does have a clumsy quality to some of its writing threads. Like, I don't think the Harfoots have been particularly well executed here in this season. It is very hard for me to care about a society that lets its slowest members behind. They talk about that with a point of pride, like, we survive because we keep moving, and it's like, guys, like, at our worst in society, at least we like to think in our society, like, we don't
Yeah.
always live up to it, but we always like to think we slow down for the slowest member of our society, and 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 they admittedly don't. and,
Yeah.
and I'm
Well,
like, I don't. It's very hard for me to care about your society then when you are quite happily to prepare to leave a man who broke his ankle to die.
mm,
And so, but I know that's not what they're trying to do with those characters. So there's a clumsiness there. Like, I'm giving you the benefit of the
yeah.
doubt. I will go
Yeah.
with this. I will care about these characters and so on. And I was heartbroken when their camp was burned. But there is that kind of clumsiness to some of it that does need to be ironed out a little bit.
I think so. If we focus on the Harfoots, I think they've seeing what they've done this episode. For me, it feels like they're trying to show their evolution, not genetic evolution, but their emotional and ethical evolution into being hobbits. I'm sure at some point they're going to find in this, not this season, in another season, they're going to find the Shire. So we saw them stand up for the stand up for the stranger, stand up for one another in the face of enormous, terrifying white cloaked ghouls, and then go off on a very hobbity looking adventure.
Yeah,
They've
yeah,
just
yeah, yeah.
literally walked off with a stick.
Yeah.
And there's 4 of them, and they're like, we're going to find that guy who isn't one of us. We're going to find him because he needs us. And I kind of like that. Yeah, seeing their homes get burned was awful, and seeing the fact that the stranger, who could also be Sauron a little bit, the stranger who got kicked out when he was trying to help, but in fact what he did help. And and it's the idea they had to look at themselves and go, actually, we were wrong. He was helping us. We misunderstood here.
The one thing that annoyed me in that episode, it was that one kind of clumsy kind of component. Michaela highlighted another point actually, which I think is worth mentioning as well. But it was this guy who clearly has like supernatural abilities. It's not like he's trying and failing. Like, he clearly has supernatural abilities. There's evidence of it. And then a branch fell on a child that ran into its way, and suddenly he's kicked out. I'm like, you guys had a whole ceremony a few episodes ago about the people you've left behind. You move on because it's so hard to just survive in one place. You're worried about wolves and everything, and this guy can literally keep the wolves from the door, and you are getting rid of him because a child ran in front of him when he was doing something dangerous. Like, doing something dangerous does not make you dangerous.
Yeah.
Builders do dangerous work all the time. They're not dangerous people by nature. Do you know what I mean? Like, and it's and
Yeah.
he and they, again, that feels like silly writing. That feels like clumsy writing to me. Because I think, yes, you can write that because in the moment it feels like, yes, I need to kick him out, so then there's no one to protect us later when we lose our homes.
Yeah.
And it's losing our homes that's going to bond us together. But like, some of the characters should at the very least stood up to him. Brandyfoot should have stood. Like, is that her name, Brandyfoot?
Yes. Yeah. The main family of the Brandyfoots.
Yeah. Who's the girl? Nori. Sorry, Nori. Like, she's looking at, like, she's being kind of cuddled by the mother, and she's looking at the as if like, who are you? Like, what have you done? Like, I like, with this almost like anger in her face, or this kind of fear for him. And I'm like, all that happened was a branch of a tree fell off. He didn't shoot lightning from his arms at you guys,
But I guess that's been building though, hasn't it? Because she got frozen in the previous episode, and did she get burned? There were all these things that happened that really scared her, and it was almost like that was it was a younger sister, I think, and I think that was the last straw.
To me, that didn't feel it, because I think it's her and her friends are encouraging him the whole time. So it doesn't feel like she's somebody who's now suddenly distant. Like, if he had gone to like give her a gift of like an apple or something, and she like made excuses to get away from him, then I'd understand.
Yeah,
then it makes sense. But it's like, I'm not seeing any evidence of that.
So who on the stranger? Who do you think he is? What who's your money on?
Okay, I asked Marcus, well, like, do you think he's Gandalf? I think Marcus gave some thoughts on why that might not work or anything like that. But I'm now beginning to think, like, I think the strength of the writing, and I really don't want to sound like I'm being heavily critical of the show, because I am really loving it. But like as I said, there are just a few moments that I don't think allow it to hit the impeccable standard, let's say, that we've gotten from other Lord of the Rings fare. I would be inclined to say that it's Gandalf now, because I'm more leaning on the fact that Halbrand is probably Sauron.
Mm.
And again, I could be completely wrong. It could be something else. But if it turns out he is Sauron, then it's like they don't know their audience at all. Because and I don't
Yes.
mean a Tolkien audience. I mean just a movie going, TV watching audience. Like, it's never the person we're supposed to think it is. Like, of course, the meteorite hits. There's this powerful man who has no memory of who he is, and your immediate first guess is, "Oh, Sauron." But every audience is scrubbing that afterwards, thinking, "Nah, that's too obvious." So if it is Sauron, then, well, that's just the laziest storytelling I've ever seen. I've probably ever seen in a show of similar relative scale.
But likewise, he's still very Gandalfy as well. You could say that a Gandalf reveal would be almost as lazy as a Sauron.
But that's my point, is I don't think the writing is so impeccable that they have this nailed down. Like, I think Sauron is unacceptably obvious, if that makes sense. Like, we would be unaccepting that that's Sauron because it's too lazy. The way they've done it. But I think we could our giddiness of seeing Gandalf on screen again in some other form would override that.
It feels like they've written themselves into a corner where it needs to be a character that we do know.
Yeah, we have to have seen his character. Otherwise, why are you hiding his name? Because you could just have him remember his name, but he just doesn't remember where he came from.
Yeah, and when I say a character we do know, I mean from the Jackson films.
Yeah. Like, this has to be...
So if it's a blue wizard who isn't in the Jackson films, or even like Radagast, who's in a little bit...
It couldn't be Radagast. Oh no, it could. I guess it could.
It could. I think it could. I think technically it could be Radagast, but I think that would feel like a letdown if they're giving us a more minor character reveal. Or, I mean, there are a number of other characters it could be in the Jackson verse, but it feels like they need to give us one rather than just go, "Oh, I'm such and such from Valinor," and it's like no one knows who they are who hasn't read the books, kind of thing. And it's I don't know. I'm quite interested to see where they go with it.
The reason why I don't think it's Radagast is I think it would make sense because of the nature connection and so on, but I think they want to distance themselves from the Hobbit trilogy because that's the trilogy that people didn't like, even though I love it. But I think it's Gandalf because we've always associated Gandalf as tall. And that's the difference. Like, this isn't a tall man who landed in the Southlands. This is a tall, I mean, in the sense of, like, he didn't land in a village of men. He landed in a near the Harfoots. Therefore, his size is being described. They're making a point of his size. Yeah. He is already exceptionally tall, it appears.
But to that point, we don't know. We don't know the scale yet. We've got no measurement of scale. We don't know how big he is and how big the Harfoots are.
You're building him up to be tall.
Yeah.
So you have to have him tall, no matter who he's standing next to. And Gandalf was always a very commanding presence in front of other people. Even if he was, I don't know, again, was he taller than Aragorn or whatever? But he always felt like he was taller than Aragorn. He felt like he was the tallest person in the room. And Saruman felt like he was the tallest man in the room. And there's something about the wizards and the way they hold themselves, and the staff makes them look bigger as well. And it's just, it all works. And so I do feel that this guy cannot suddenly look average next to Halbrand or Galadriel. He has to be a kind of a special presence, no matter who he's in the room with. So I do feel that is all leaning towards the idea that he is going to be a very well-dressed, well-mannered wizard, that down the line. And also the connection to the Harfoots would explain brilliantly why Gandalf always has an affinity for the hobbits.
Yeah, it's all there. Yeah. It's all there. I just think we don't want it to be too clumsy.
I do think look, some of the best cameos in the Marvel universe don't don't hold a lot of weight, but it's the giddiness of seeing that actor back, or it's the
Mm.
giddiness of hearing that name or seeing that costume or hearing that theme song that just sells us on it entirely. Um, and you know, like they and Marvel do take the shortcuts every now and again, but we forgive them because the payoff is worth it.
Yeah.
And I think the payoff of hearing Gandalf's name being uttered would be enough to override any sense of like, is it too quick to have him in this? Is it too easy? Is he in it
Yeah.
from day one? We got Galadriel and Gandalf in day one. But also, it's probably Gandalf because Galadriel is the driving force right now in this series. And who's the one that Galadriel has always had a kind of an affinity for in the movies, in all the trilogies? It's Gandalf. So,
Yeah, I think
you
the
know,
one worry I've got is the changing of the law. That he was it's the wrong age for him to appear in Middle Earth. Like he didn't appear till much later, and I can hear the battle axes smashing against the shields now. I can hear it, and it's just they need to be careful with what they do here.
like I think that was what Marcus said to me when I pitched Gandalf to him. And I think everybody's probably thought Gandalf. It kind of looks a little like him, like, or the kind of Gandalf the Grey, anyway. And he said that at the age. Like, do you think they care enough about the Tolkien, let's say the amateur scholars, let's say the people who have the hobbyist Tolkien scholars? Do you think they care enough about their knowledge base to sacrifice the potential to tell these stories? Like, I'm not saying Gandalf is a good direction to go in. It all depends on how they handle it. But
I don't know.
I
Some
won't.
episodes I do, and some episodes I don't. I don't think we're going to know until this is done. I don't think we're going to know until we've got those answers, because they've already compressed this timeline. They've already compressed the thousands of years into a few hundred. So yes, I guess technically they could bring Gandalf in, but there would be an uproar. Whether they'd still watch it is another question.
Can I ask, is because you've been doing your studying on this stuff, is the sort where it says that Gandalf was from another age or whatever,
Mm.
like, is that where is that? Is that like one line that could be vaguely misinterpreted by
I
where
don't think
convenience
so.
allows, or like how committed do they really have to be with that?
So I haven't been reading the text. I've been threaducating myself on the internet with lots of different pages and videos and stuff like that. So I don't know that it might be the Silmarillion that sort of goes into the prior adventures of characters and when they emerged and awoke, as some of them are described as their moment of coming into the world. But it's heavily discussed that he's not around in this second age. He's not here, but they are compressing it. So
Yeah.
maybe they'll do that. I don't
And
know.
are they are you so when you say compressing it, like, there have like, are they taking shortcuts to kind of get to certain points faster than they would be in a chronological sense, like, or
Yes, nothing insanely dramatic at this point, but they have compressed a huge amount of things that the elves do into a shorter period, so that the mortal characters are still around by the time they finish what they're doing, if that makes sense. So we're still getting this idea that the elves are, ageless and immortal, and they've been around for thousands of years, and time passes differently for them. But we have mortal characters which we're also invested in. So there's this whole thing that they've compressed a few things into really short timelines that are happening very quickly, that would have happened hundreds, if not thousands of years, over hundreds, if not thousands of years.
I'm going to put you in a perilous situation right now, right?
Please don't, John. God.
If you were brought on as the showrunner of this, before it ever started production, and your texts, your stuff backwards and forwards, it's why you got the job. That Gandalf isn't from this period, right? Let's say, and someone in the writers' room pitches you a compelling introduction of Gandalf, do you like? Are you going to be somebody that would say, "Guys, we really have to stick to the source here," or would you be prepared to say, "Okay, you know what? If it means a great TV series that people are going to really love, I'm happy to bend the narrative a little bit here."
So definitely the latter. I think although I think it could be catastrophic for fans of Tolkien, a good showrunner will always listen to ideas that go off script. Whether they pick them or not is a different question, but they should definitely be considered, because otherwise you are just going to produce another sausage out of the factory that sounds and tastes exactly like everything else that we've seen. So yes, there are things that I would definitely consider it. I think that's as far as I'll go.
You think the showrunners are prepared to make radical changes, like the actual showrunners? Do you think they're, from the vibe you're getting from the things you've read so far and stuff like that? Do you get that feeling? Because I don't. I'm just watching this as
I think they're writing
fantasy.
into the law and adapting it as they go. I think if any radical changes are to be made, or that they have made, like canonically, have been very considered. Like, I don't think that I think any of the Tolkien lore, like script wise and legally, they've had to handle with kid gloves, because they didn't buy the rights to the Silmarillion. Even though they've discussed some parts of it, they have to be really careful with how they do it. So they are writing into a grid here. They're ticking boxes and making sure they don't go over the lines, and it's
How
it
much?
is.
How much do you think Jeff Bezos said? Do whatever you want. Make this better and bigger than Game of Thrones. I will buy everything you need to make sure we can do it our way.
So I think Bezos is quite a divisive character. Well, he's not a character, person in the world. But what I did like about this is that he apparently sent them a bucket load of notes on the first pass, and they ignored all of them.
Yeah, and he was okay with
And
that,
and
wasn't he?
he said he appreciated that they did that. So that's quite an interesting sort of thread to the story of how it was made. So I think just before we wrap up, I really, really want to quickly touch on Khazad-dûm and what's going on there. So we've got Elrond and Durin mining, just the two of them, which was great. I really liked that.
I love every bit of that thread.
The emotion in their relationship is it's wonderful. And the idea that he was going to tell him his dwarven name it was just felt great. I was like, okay, they've really invested us and themselves into this relationship. And then the fact that he has his princehood or future kingdom like stripped from him. We don't know if that means he's definitely been disowned at this point, but it feels like he has. Elrond's kicked out. So this is Durin the Third's done all this. And it felt really upsetting, because they'd had this big emotional thing. They'd found the Mithril. They were going to say, even Durin the Third, King Durin, knows now that this is true, because he's seen the leaf healed by the Mithril, and he kicked them out anyway because he didn't want to risk any lives. It feels like Disa and Prince Durin might be leaning towards an insurrection here. Like the very start of it, but it feels like there could be a usurping that is sort of that they go towards.
I loved every second of that whole thing. Like, you could just cut every one of their scenes together for me, and it, like, from episode 1 all the way, and it was just that was the impeccable standard that I it was always the thing whenever I felt like, okay, I'm getting a bit bored of the politics in Numenor, or I'm getting a bit bored of this, or or not really big fan of this Harfoot character or that, it was always just like, the minute they went back to the mines, I just thought, like, I'm totally back in on this. Like, I think Lady Disa is better than, I think she could wipe the floor with any character in Game of Thrones. I get the feeling, like, if we're gonna make some comparisons, like, I think she's incredible.
Mm.
Like Sophia Nomvedi, I think, is just is one of the best actors in this whole show.
Yes.
She's one of the most interesting characters in any of the Lord of the Rings movies or TV shows I've come across. She's fantastic, and that joke he makes about like this is great. This is how you do great characterization, right? You know, Spielberg is the master at selling you on the visual effects because the actors sell you on the visual effects. He cuts into a reaction shot of Sam Neill, you know, glasses falling off his face, and you know that's an incredible thing you're about to see. You know, Harrison Ford and Indiana Jones, all that kind of stuff, right? And this is one of the best examples of that kind of thing done well. There's a moment where she is talking about his his father, and then he makes a joke about her mother, and he's not brave enough to finish the joke, and he says, "I'm joking, I'm joking, I'm joking," and he steps back, and I pissed myself laughing watching that. You know, it was hilarious, and I just thought
Yeah.
she's so brilliant as a character,
She's great.
so equal to him that, and he views her as his equal, and it's you know, in so many of these shows where royalty and you know, kings and queens and princes and princesses and so on and so forth come into play, there's so often this imbalance, and here she is hammering an axe, you know, or a knife or a blade, you know, and it's brilliant. I mean, it's like,
Angrily,
yeah,
angrily hammering it. Yeah.
and she says, I don't know if that's the moment, but it's just, there's always these little moments that just make you realize, yeah, like he will not dare to finish that sentence about her mother,
Yeah.
and it is incredible, and that speaks volumes about it. So I think everything about that, I think the trifecta of them and Elrond, the fact that she is angry because she wants to protect Elrond as well, all of that is just magic, real magic. And then the relationship with the father as well, who's playing quite a similar character to the role he plays in Westworld.
Yes.
I can't remember the
very
actor's
much.
name, but he's in Westworld as well as the kind of the king of the empire, you know, so to speak, and it's very much the son or the son-in-law, you know, having a, you know, speaking up, you know, or having a different vision, you know. Brilliant, just absolute brilliance from top to bottom, really. So again, pardon my ignorance, is this the same because of the Balrog at the end, at the bottom? Is this the same location as where they go in Fellowship of the Ring? Yeah.
So this is Khazad-dûm, and it doesn't fall for a long time. As far as I understand, I wish I had Marcus here at this point. As far as I know, that doesn't happen for some time, and they found that Balrog. So do you think he's just going to stay there for a few centuries or millennia, or however? I don't know the exact time, but I know it's not soon. It's not supposed to happen soon, right? So it's supposed to happen later, because the whole point that Gimli doesn't even know that it's happened is like, oh well, it had to happen relatively recently. I know dwarves live longer than men, so time passes differently, but it's not that much longer. And surely, if a Balrog called Bane had have taken out Khazad-dûm, he would have known. But so it's, again, we don't know what they're doing with the timeline. We don't know if that Balrog is just gonna, go back to sleep just for a little bit while they leave the Mithril alone. We don't really know at this point.
Yeah. So, I did. That's why I asked, because it felt like surely that guy's going to come into play, and that was the thing. Like when like I mean, surely he's going to come into play, and so it's like, yeah, I mean, where like either that or he leaves the mountain and goes somewhere else and comes back again. I mean,
I don't think he can, because I think they uncover him. So he's Durin's Bane effectively, and he looks just like he does in the Jackson verse, which is great because I love that sequence in Fellowship of the Ring, and the mountain passes Moria, which is Black Pit, which we kind of, it's kind of all falling into place, but I don't know how they're going to swing this. Is that is it Chekhov's Balrog, and he's gonna wait there for some time. And we've said, oh yeah, that Balrog's gonna take out
No,
that entire
yeah,
settlement,
he's
that
got.
entire kingdom.
I think he'll be. You can't introduce him and not use him. Obviously, it can't just be a nod and then we walk away. Like again, you've got to like the fact. It's not a an amulet or something on the king's table that's means something, like to the diehard fans or whatever. This is a giant beast that breathes fire that poses a threat to the people who come down looking for the mithril. And yes, it could just be a reference to we know where that's going to go, but to the casual fan who doesn't know that that's Durin's Bane, is going to want that thing coming back at some point. So you can't play that card with a Balrog.
It's a bit of a tease, isn't it?
Yeah, it's too much of a tease. I loved all of that anyway. That whole thread, that section.
Was great. Wasn't it?
Wait to see what happens.
I think it's safe to say we're both, or many people are very excited to see what happens in the finale next week.
Have you seen the trailer? Have you seen the trailer? Like they did a 2-minute trailer.
I haven't seen the trailer. I've seen. Oh no, I think I did see the trailer. What?
They do. So they did like a 30-second trailer at the end of the episode, but then they released on YouTube a like 2-minute kind of super cut of the season, and they intercut with text. They don't really give any new footage that you didn't see in the 30-second teaser, but it says all will be revealed or something like that. And it is very much like, I think we're going to get the identity of the mysterious man, and I do think we're going to get the identity of Sauron. I think those two things are happening in this episode because it says all will be revealed.
Yes, I would be surprised if they didn't give us something, at least something, to be in line with a claim like that. Whether it's another fake, because they've been doing a lot of double fakes for us. Whether they're referencing something else.
Okay.
There's been a lot of throwing us off the scent in this series, which is great because I never expected it to be a detective episode, season for us.
But what do you think? Before we wrap up, what do you think?
I think
if they're not giving us identities of these people, like where do you think they are going to? What do you think they're throwing us off the scent of?
I hope they give us the identity of the people. I hope that's where they go. The reason I'm saying throw us off the scent is because they've done it a number of times. So they might. I don't know. It might be a character level or will be revealed. So I can't think off the top of my head what it would be. But there are things that the characters don't know. But I think we're on the same level as in the identities of people and stuff like that. So maybe it's my my alert going off because I don't want to be tricked.
Okay.
Again.
I got one more. Okay, it's clear that in the next episode they're going to be talking about rings of power. Because the architect or whatever his name is, he's like
Celebrimbor.
Yeah, he's talking about something. You really know your stuff here. He's talking about like power and all that kind of stuff. Okay, is it up to this point we've had no talk of rings of power, right? I'm not saying you have to say those words. I'm not saying you have to like dangle jewelry in front of us the whole time. But is it too much to go 7 episodes without any kind of even hint to, because there's not really any hint. There's like, I want to build a tower, blah blah blah. Okay, fine, but there's not really any, I guess, exploration of what such power could be, and you know what I mean. Like there does feel like there's a missing beat there. I'm not sure how I feel about it, but what do you think about that?
So I think if we are to get any rings of power or examples of what they might be or where they might come from.
Yeah, that's why I'm looking for examples.
So I think there's a chance if Sauron's identity is revealed or at least hinted to, it will be to the audience and not to the characters. And if we are to end on anything to do with the rings of power, it will be, if it's Halbrand, he will meet Celebrimbor at the foot of the tower, the forge that's being built, because Sauron is a forger, as is Halbrand. And there's this whole idea that Sauron has to influence these rings being made without his identity being entirely known, or his intentions being entirely known. So I think there'll be something, if we get anything to do with the Rings of Power, it will be the audience awareness or heightened potential awareness of who Sauron is meeting Celebrimbor at the Forge.
See, now you've totally sold me. It has to be Halbrand.
It's got to be Halbrand.
It has to.
But I don't know. We might get nothing to do with the rings this season.
The thing about Halbrand for me is he's a Halbrand or Hellbrand.
Halbrand.
It sounds very like Hellbrand, doesn't it? So it's obviously him. Anyway, so I felt like when I was watching it, I'll probably get hated for this. I felt like they were trying to do the Aragorn thing. The guy who doesn't want to be the guy.
Totally. That's totally what they're doing.
And I wasn't buying it. And the whole idea, like, oh, he's the king. I'm like, really? Like, he seems so nonchalant about the whole thing. And then when they're all like, hail the king, I'm like, that was really, you're just all accepting this stranger as your leader?
Yeah.
Like, really? Like, it's just because he wears this thing.
It's very quick.
It's very, very rushed, very, very accepting. And that was just one thing that I had an issue with, slight issue with. But if you're telling me that, like, the more I convince myself that he's Sauron, I'm like, that's perfect then. Like, that's fine. Like, none of that actually really is. That's just distraction, that's just throwing us off the scent.
Yeah,
so
I mean, he might not be so enamored to be the king of the Southlands anymore.
Yeah.
He had about 48 seconds of being yes, and then it was like, oh no.
You know why he is? He absolutely is Sauron, because he's the king of what is now Mordor.
Yeah. Exactly.
Like,
he knows Adar. Adar doesn't remember him because he's in his fair form. Like but all of these they could be breadcrumbs. I wouldn't be that surprised if we've been tricked and these are breadcrumbs. But we'll hopefully we'll get at least a tiny bit more clarity in the next episode. So excited to see it. I know you are too. And maybe we'll all. Marcus, you and I and Caleb will try and get on one for the big finale next week. So thanks everyone for listening, guys. This has been the Script Department. Check us out at thescriptdepartment.net. We've got a whole raft of international screenwriters. We get up to all sorts of little projects. Get over there and see what we've been up to. You can find us on Spotify. You can find us on YouTube. We're on Apple Podcasts, wherever else you can get your podcasts. Give us a like, give us a subscribe, and we will be back next week to see where this thing's going. See you then.